Don came with this notion that he was a doctor, he wanted to help people, he wanted to be involved in some sort of cancer research. The Cancer Council, having the faith to put their money behind one really smart person for a long time, gave him the courage to work on difficult problems until he resolved them. He focused on one technique, and he was the best in the world at that. Don started in the early 60s to try to understand how to grow stem cells. The discovery of the way to grow blood cells in the laboratory quickly translated into the patients to improve their recovery from the chemotherapy that they were undergoing for their cancer. Many of the patients couldn't have the full dose of chemotherapy unless they got the growth factors to support their bone marrow. And Don's discovery of these growth factors allowed many millions of patients to have more chemotherapy and have a more likely response and recovery from their cancer. These have had an immediate and quite pervasive impact around the world.
The guaranteed sustained funding that Don received allowed him to tackle questions that would not have otherwise been possible. But the Cancer Council made that investment in Don. It paid off. It was a brilliant investment. There are probably close to now 30 million people around the world that have been treated with the growth factors that Don and his team first identified. And those growth factors have had a significant effect, particularly in people undergoing bone marrow transplantation or having chemotherapy treatments.
The Cancer Council started up a program where they knew that it was going to be a difficult problem, and they hired him for life. He was able to take a long-term perspective from the mid-60s right through to the 2000s. He's had an immediate impact in the early 80s, a long-term impact through improved cancer treatment and bone marrow transplantation, and now in the next half a century it'll be about the role of these molecules in infection and immune diseases. So it's had a lasting impact on millions of people.
I had the enormous privilege of having Don as my PhD supervisor. With the passage of time, increasingly I've recognised what an important role Don had to play in shaping my scientific career. In terms of Don's legacy, I think it's easy to characterise it in terms of his scientific contribution, which is remarkable. The legacy that I think is even more important is the legacy in terms of the people that he's trained and influenced. Many people that Don has trained have had a significant scientific career afterwards, and then they've had their own scientific progeny, many of whom have also gone on to success. So the ripple effect, it's been far-reaching in terms of the impact that it's had both within the Australian and the international communities.